Heyo, do you want to hear something that instills fear into the heart of indie game devs everywhere? Planning. I know, it's fun to quickly make some art for your game and see a character moving around the screen, but as your project scales, it becomes important to think about how all of these ideas will blend together into something more cohesive. Otherwise, you can end up with a project that has no focus, or find yourself wondering what you're supposed to do next. There's been many times where I've had games that seem great on paper, but as I've developed it further, it really wasn't as good as it was in my head. So, in this devlog, I'm going to go over the steps I'm taking to ensure the development process goes as smoothly as possible, and tackle the thought process behind making the art and certain UI elements. When planning out ideas, both big and small, I always think to sketch out a rough concept first, as well as come up with a central theme. Since I'm currently on vacation, I don't have access to my sketchbook, so my fiancé let me borrow her mini notepad. After brainstorming for a bit, I thought about something that could be made within a short amount of time, but still be engaging. This is when I thought of mixing the incremental upgrades of a Tamagotchi game with the simplistic gameplay of an idle clicker. After spending some time sketching the concept, here's what I had. Since it's based on Tamagotchi games, you start with an egg. As you pet the egg, you unlock upgrades that help you grow your egg. Now, my fiance loves cats. I think saying love is actually an understatement. So I thought, why not make the creature a cat? The goal of the game is to work your way to the top until the cat becomes the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Why was this the idea I went for? Honestly, I just thought it was really funny to think about. And it's important to be able to have fun while making your game. With the loose brainstorming process out the way, it was time to move into Milano and actually organize my ideas. Alright, welcome back to Milano. I loosely talked about this in one of my previous videos, but today we're going to show you how I actually go over the process of properly organizing everything. Now that we were in Milano, it was time to rough concepts and organize them into something that can be revised later. I started by adding a bunch of boards that would have their own category. This included things like upgrades, levels, items, and various other subcategories. Once that was laid out, I also made a bug fix list on the left and a checklist for tasks on the right. With the basic skeleton laid out, it was now time to create the mood board. Now, I'll be real. The mood board is not 100% necessary to the development process, but it personally helps me get an idea of what the game should look like. And I mean, look at this. I mean, come on, these fancy looking cats with their ties, they're adorable. You can't sit there and tell me that this isn't important to the process. Now that I had a nice collection of cats in business attire, it was time to think about how the tile set and sprite work would look. When I create art for really any game, I love to design a mock-up scene and import them into Milano. This helps give me an idea on how the final product will look and allows me to create a timeline of my personal process. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's move to Sprite and go over the artistic process for making cute, cozy sprites. As I've made more games and prototypes over the years, I've realized the most important thing to do before making any art is figure out the resolution of your game. You can have the most drop-dead gorgeous art, but if your game scales awkwardly, it can completely ruin the art you've made and the experience for your players. When I made projects in the past, I treated the planning process more like a blank canvas. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with this, it can completely overlook how your game will look on different computers or just different devices. Let's take this piece of art versus this piece of art. Both pieces look aesthetically pleasing, but pay attention to the resolutions. Now let's scale these pieces up to fit on a modern computer screen. As you can see, the second piece scales much cleaner than the first because the resolution was thought of much earlier in the development process. I know this segment was kind of long, but this is something that a lot of beginner devs get wrong. I've been thinking about making a video going over scaling and resolutions for pixel art, so if that's something that interests you, please make sure to leave a comment down below. Anyways, with our resolution figured out, it was now time to figure out the size of the tiles and how the character will fit on said lines. Now, this is literally my favorite part because I get to draw my favorite character, Bingus. All they are is a character that acts as a placeholder for what the official art will look like, but they never fail to put a smile on my face. I mean, look at them. They're literally perfect. This is finally when I was able to just let loose and focus on the art. If you're ever struggling to make pixel art, or really any art in general, it's important to look up references for how you want your game to look. For example, I wanted the art to have bright colors. So I took a lot of inspiration from A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, but I also looked at the Animal Crossing series for cooler tones and just generally a more cozy vibe. With all of this together, I was able to make a somewhat usable palette that I can use for the game. And with all that figured out, I made this little island that the egg could sit on, and I even surrounded the island with trees to create this chunk of land. Now it's time to design the egg. Originally, I wanted to make an egg similar to the ones you see in Yoshi's Island with the spots, but I couldn't quite get it to work with the style, and I decided that a flat colored egg would do better. For simple testing purposes, I decided to just go with a yellow egg. I'm thinking before the game starts you can pick the color of your egg, and this will determine what kind of cat you'd get. But I also think I can make it random. I'm not completely sure what idea I'm going to go with, but I had some time to think about it. Of course, the little island needed clouds, so I made a lined and lineless cloud sprite, which I think turned out pretty good. There's a lot more I worked on, like planning out the UI elements and upgrades that'll be available for purchase. But I wanted to talk about that in a separate devlog because I personally think that there is a lot that goes into making good UI elements. A lot of people think as long as you gain basic information from the UI, it's good enough to be packaged. But the UI is an artistic extension to your game and should involve just as much time and care as the rest of your game's art. I also have plans to add upgrades to the island so the player feels an overall sense of progression. Sometimes when you play an idle game for too long, the game just starts to turn into numbers going up with no real purpose. That's why I want each milestone to feel like you're accomplishing something of value. This is also why I'm working on making the music change with each stage of your egg's development. Sort of like you're climbing a corporate ladder, but I'll cover all of that in the next devlog. And of course, thank you for watching. I want to give a huge shout out to Vanessa, Hannibal, and Khalid for supporting me and the channel. Your continued support helps me create more videos for everyone to enjoy. And if you enjoyed the video, please feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss an upload. And if you want to join a community of people that share the same interest as you, there's a link to my Discord server down below. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.